Welcome to the first lesson on drafting with AutoCAD. In this lesson, inshallah, we will look at how to create or how to set preferred units for our drafting work. Then we will look at how to create text styles, and finally how to create dimension styles. The last two steps go hand in hand, so it's important that we create them together. So let's get to it. So once you've opened the AutoCAD software, this is just a view of what you'll be seeing. So in order to open an empty drawing, I'm going to use one of the templates provided. So to do that, you just click on this drop down. Then for our case, we're going to use this, the AutoCAD DWT template. So you just click on it. Then once it's opened, you begin by setting the units. So you just type units on the keyboard and press enter. So the dialog box here shows us the different measurements, the length, and then the angle, which is the most commonly thing we're going to use. So for the length, we're mostly going to be dealing with millimeters, which are decimal in nature. So we're going to select the decimal function. Perhaps you can use the architectural, but now depends on the standard which you're using, perhaps in your country. So we're going to use decimal. Then on the precision, we're going to use 0. We're not going to be having any decimals on the millimeters, depending on the accuracy or the size of the drawing we're going to be using, or you're going to be having. For the angle, you're still going to use decimal degrees. The precision, 0, the same. Now this option at the bottom, usually the AutoCAD software measures angles as positive towards the anti-clockwise direction. So in this case, if you click on this, you select it, it's going to now measure angles as positive in the clockwise direction. But for our case, we're just going to leave it as anti-clockwise. So you're going to unclick on the box. For the insertion scale, this refers to now when you are perhaps importing a drawing into an already opened drawing. So the AutoCAD software is going to assume that the units in this coming drawing is going to be perhaps the inches in this case. But for us, we're going to select it as unitless. So the alert here is telling us that the insertion scale is set to unitless, referring to the photometric light, which may not be rendered as expected. But now we're only going to be working with 2D drafting, so we're not going to be much concerned with lighting and all the rendering effects. So you press continue. Once you're done with that, you can press OK, because these settings are satisfactory. So before we create text styles, we need to have one thing in mind. That is, the text styles are dependent on the scales that you're going to be using on the drawing. So before you even begin drawing, you must have come up with a series or a set of scales which you're going to be using for the final drafting or the final product. So I'll show you how that comes in when you're creating the text. So to create the text styles, you go to the Annotate tab. Look at this text palette here. Click on the drop down, then you click Manage Text Styles. So we have these two default ones, the annotative and the standard, but we're not going to be dealing with any annotations today. So select the standard, then click New here. Then you're going to begin with a text style and give it a scale of 1, text 1. So to represent it as text style scale 1, press OK. So we're going to keep everything else here the same, we're not going to change. For the height, we're going to give it 3 millimeters, which is what I usually use. I want the height for the final drawing to be, the height of the text to be 3 millimeters. So for a scaling of 1, it's not going to be increased in any way. So just the same as just 3 times 1. So you apply. Then I'm going to set another scale, which is commonly used. So I call it for text style 25. So in this case, the text height is going to be increased or multiplied by a factor of 25. So it's going to be 25 times 3, which is 75. Then I click on apply. I set another one. I set it as text perhaps 30 for scale 30. I do the same, 3 times 30, which is going to be 90. Then I click apply. Then I set another one, perhaps text 40, scale of 40. So 40 times 3, that is 120 millimeters. So I apply. Then I set just the last one, perhaps the second last one. Text 50. Let's use text 50. That is a scale of 50. So 50 times 3, that is 150. Then I click on apply. Then let's set the last one, text 100, for a scale of 100. That is 1 to 100. So 100 times 3, that is 300. Then I click on apply. So that is a very quick way to create the text style that you might be using in your drawing. So we're done creating the text styles. We go ahead and create the dimension styles. And as before, they're also dependent on the number of scales you're going to be using in the drawing. So to create a dimension style, we go to the dimension section here. Click on this drop down. Click on manage dimension styles. Then you click on new on this dialog box. Then for the new style name, we're going to name it this in a similar way as the text styles. So you can say dimension, perhaps we begin with 1. Then this start with option is just giving us, like, we select a baseline from where we want to extract most of the work most of the options we're going to be using for setting the drawing style. So in our case, we're going to be using the standard one. Don't want to use any annotation. So we click on continue. So we begin with the text. We change the text style to coincide with the dimension style. So we want a text of 1, which is exactly 3 millimeters. Then we can select here the text alignment, aligned with the dimension style. We go to the symbols and arrows. We want the arrow size to be of a similar size to the text style or to the text. So we're going to give it 3 millimeters. Press enter, as you can see. Then we're going to go ahead and change also the center marks for the circles, as you can see on this screen. We're going to make it perhaps 1.5 millimeters, just perhaps a half of the arrow size. Now it's visible. The next step, we're going to go to the text placement or the fit. In this case, it's in the scenarios where perhaps you are setting dimensions for an object and you find that it's perhaps in a very small place. So you have to choose either to move the text or to place the arrows in a different way. So in our case, we're going to select this option here, which says when there is not enough space available for text and arrows, move both outside the extension lines in this manner, or we can select perhaps the text in this manner. So it depends on what you prefer. The next tab, we're going to look at the primary units tab. In this case, similar to the units tab that we had on the creating units options. So for the precision, we don't want it to be too much with too many decimal points. So you can use just 1, so it's a bit simpler. Then for the decimal separator, as usual, it's going to be period. For the precision, we set it as 0. For the angular dimensions, over here down, still the same, we keep it that manner. The precision also 0. So moving over to the alternate units tab, this is the case where we want to display more than one unit on the same dimension. Perhaps this is used mostly when we're dealing with drawings that are going to be used by more than one technician who is conversant. Perhaps they are conversant with more than different kinds of units. For example, if you were to just select it, as you can see in brackets, there are other units written here. In this case, the unit format is in architectural stacked, so we have here feet and inches. But for our case, we won't be using it. We're going to assume that the people who are going to be receiving our drawing are conversant with the millimeter system, so we uncheck it. On the tolerances, we're not going to be using any tolerances because this depends on the level of accuracy of the drawing you want. For our case, we're not going to be using it, but it's mostly used for perhaps machine drawings, where we're going to be sending the drawings to be perhaps for the steel designs to be cut, etc. So you press on OK, and you've set your first dimension style. Now you're going to be using this as a template to create the other dimension styles. So you select it, you select new, then just going to change the name. So you go to the next one, dimension style of 25, then you continue. So you're going to change a couple of things here. Begin with the text, select the text that coincides with it, that is 75. Then you go to the symbols and arrows, change the height to 75. You go to, in this case, we're going to use, for the center marks, we're going to use 75 divided by 2, that is around 37.5. Yeah. And then what else do we need to change? There's nothing else we need to change in this case, so we just press OK. Then we create another one. Just create the ones that we had created before. So we can still use the dimension 25 as a starting point. So we go to 30, continue, go and change the text to coincide, text 30, height of 90. So here we give it an arrow size of 90. Then in this case we give it 45, like that. Then I think there's nothing else to change. Press OK. You can go ahead and create another one. Dimension style of, I think it was 40. Did you hear? I think we created 40. Continue. Then go to the text, select one that coincides, then go to the symbols. The text was 120, so here arrow size is going to be 120. This case is going to be half, 60. Then you're done. Go to the other one, 50. Dimension style of 50. You clear this one. You continue. Go to the text, make it text of 50. Arrow size is going to be 50 times 3, 150. So it's going to be 75. Yeah, and you're done. Press OK. Then the last one was for 100. So dimension of scale 100. Clear it, continue. Use the text. Select the one that coincides. Go to the symbols and arrows. You're going to select, go to type 300 for the arrow size. There's going to be 150, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, it's going to be 150. Then you're done. So as you can see, we've created all the dimension styles that we're going to be using in this drawing. So just before we close, we want to save this drawing as a template so that we can continue modifying it as the lessons go by. So in order to do that, go to the top left corner, the AutoCAD icon, you click on it, then you select Save As, select it as drawing template. Then you're going to save it as, perhaps let's give it lesson template, or any name you want to give it. Then you select the folder in which you're going to save it. In this case, I'm just going to save it here. Then I click Save. Then, so the description, you can give it any description you want. Perhaps I can say lesson, let's call it drafting lesson template. Then you press OK. Now we have saved it, so we can use it for the next classes and perhaps modify it as time goes by. So we've learned how to set units and also how to create text and dimension styles. If you found this lesson useful, you can like and subscribe to the channel so as not to miss the next lesson. Thank you for watching and see you on the next lesson.